unfolding in Minneapolis, Minnesota. Governor Tim Walz holding a news conference right now about that deadly ICE-related shooting of a woman during an immigration crackdown. Let's listen in.
Let me be clear. The Trump and his don't cost someone their life. I've reached out to Secretary of Homeland Security Kristi Noem, and I'm waiting to hear back. Let me be clear. The Trump and his Minnesotans, I say this, I feel your anger. I'm angry. They want a show. We can't give it to them. We cannot. If you protest and express your First Amendment rights, please do so peacefully as you always do. We can't give them what they want. The hearts and minds of the people in this state are on our side. To Americans, I ask you this, please stand with Minneapolis. To Minnesotans, know that our administration is going to stop at nothing to seek accountability and justice. The State Bureau of Criminal Apprehension are working on the investigation. We have activated the State Emergency Operations Center. State Patrol and Minnesota National Guard leadership is connected with the Minneapolis Police Department, the St. Paul Police Department, Hennepin County Sheriff's Office, the DNR, and Minnesota's Homeland Security and Emergency Management. We have activated dozens of members of the State Patrol's mobile response team. And from here on, I have a very simple message. We do not need any further help from the federal government. To Donald Trump and Kristi Noem, you've done enough. There's nothing more important than Minnesotan safety. I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight. We will not take the bait. We will continue to update you, Minnesota, as we get more information. Now I'd like to turn it over to Commissioner Bob Jacobson of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety.
Thank you, Governor. As the Governor mentioned, my name is Bob Jacobson. It is my honor to serve as the Commissioner of the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. First of all, I want to acknowledge the reason that we are all here. The loss of life is not anything anyone would ever want. We fully expect that the community will want to peacefully demonstrate their anger or frustration. Minnesota residents and visitors have the right to peacefully demonstrate. We recognize that demonstrations are often driven by strong emotions, beliefs, and certainly a desire to be heard. Our role is to help ensure everyone can express themselves without anyone getting hurt. The Minnesota Department of Public Safety's role through the Minnesota State Patrol is to ensure safety, protect constitutional rights, keep roads accessible, and above all, to prevent harm. Our top priority is public safety. Our focus is keeping demonstrators, community members, drivers, and law enforcement safe, especially during moments of heightened tension or uncertainty. Demonstrations must remain safe and lawful, particularly around roadways. We will join with our partners to support safety while respecting the right to protest. With that in mind, I'd like to share a few safe and lawful ways to demonstrate. Minnesotans can safely and legally express their views in many ways, including getting together peacefully with others in public spaces, marching or walking, not on roadways, making your voice heard through chants, speeches, and displaying signs, being present in public areas where pedestrians are allowed, gathering in designated or permitted areas, and these actions will allow people to express themselves while protecting the safety of everyone involved. Unsafe or illegal actions could result in fines or arrests. Certain behaviors create serious hazards that threaten public safety, disrupt emergency services, or put people at risk. These actions could result in fines or arrest. Demonstrating on or entering a freeway on foot, walking on highways, throwing objects, starting or setting fires, damaging property or graffiti, using illegal fireworks, displaying or using illegal weapons, reckless or dangerous driving, especially near pedestrians, and certainly assault of aggressive or riotous behavior toward anyone. We all want definitive answers to what happened today. Our Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is working in conjunction with the FBI to investigate this morning's shooting. As you know, we don't comment on active investigations, but also keep in mind that this is an investigation is also in its infancy. So any speculation about what had happened would be just that. And we will not engage in speculation. With that, I will turn it back over to the governor. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. We'd be glad to take any questions.
What do you mean when you say that the National Guard at the ready?
Yeah, and I can let General Schaefer talk about this. It so happens it's a training weekend. We've got about 7,500 troops in training at our sites, training sites across the state. What it is, and in the National Guard, you give a warning order, which is a heads up of something could be coming. That just allows people to think about what they would need, what it would mean to mobilize, what it would mean to put them in. And I could let the General talk a little bit about this. Obviously, since the summer of 2020, we had a lot of work done on teams being ready to make sure that civil unrest, and what that means, and I think Commissioner Jacobson was very clear, and I want Minnesotans to hear this from me. The desire to get out and protest and to speak up to this administration of how wrong this is, that is a patriotic duty at this point in time, but it needs to be done safely. And I think the commissioner simply just laid out some of those parameters. We can do that. This is the peaceful resistance that we need. Simon, you want to say a few things about what that means to have them on the ready?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Governor.
Governor Tim Walz of Minnesota, they're holding a press conference after that 37-year-old woman was killed during those protests on the street of Minneapolis when that ICE operation was going down, that ICE agent opening fire on her. Discrepancies happening now. Two totally different stories. Kristi Noem, DHS secretary, saying it was in self-defense that ICE agent opened fire on that woman. But you have the police chief there in Minneapolis, along with the mayor of Minneapolis, saying that is just simply not true. I'm told now we actually, and just to prepare you for this, it may be difficult to watch. We are just now getting in the video and have been cleared to show it to you. Let me know, producers, please, if there's sound, if we want to listen to this. Okay, there is no sound. This is the moment that the ICE agent comes out of the truck. You will see the SUV there. That's the 37-year-old woman that is in the car. We're not seeing the SUV after apparently shots are fired. What we are seeing is, we don't know what happened prior to this, but those are ICE agents getting out. The woman in her vehicle there, it looks like she had just possibly, officers had opened fire and the van or the SUV had driven from the scene. Not quite sure. Maybe I can get some more information on how that video was edited and if indeed that was the Honda that the woman was driving, if shots had been fired at that point or if shots were fired after she drove off. It's hard to see, too, if in that video an ICE agent is even struck. Once we figure that out, we will replay that and I'll give you more context to the video. We're just getting it in. We just got it approved. There's the pictures. That's after the woman was shot in the car. And we did see where one of the bullets went through the driver's side of the windshield. These are photos after she was shot and killed. You see law enforcement there on the scene, both federal and local officers. But the bottom line here, the Minnesota governor, Tim Walz, saying we have got to be calm. He's calling for calm. At the same time, he had his commissioner of the Department of Public Safety saying, we want you to be able to protest, but we want you to protest safely. Of course, there is tremendous concern that as ICE carries on with operations, that possibly more violence, even death, could occur. Let's bring in White House correspondent Karen Travers. She's been tracking this all day for us. Also Pierre Thomas, who is here with us, our Chief Justice correspondent. But Karen, let's start with you, because we are now hearing from the President of the United States via Truth Social. What is he saying?
Kira, the president posted on Truth Social that he viewed this clip of what took place there in Minnesota, and he says it was a horrible thing to watch. The president says that the woman screaming, and we showed the video and didn't play the audio there, but the president says that that person was a, quote, professional agitator. And Kira, the president in that social media post says that the incident is being studied, but he goes on to blame what happened there and other incidents like this against what he calls the radical left. He said that they're threatening, assaulting, and targeting law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. And he insists and defends his administration's policies, saying they're just trying to do the job of making America safe. Kira, the president defending the officers, saying we need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from this radical left movement of violence and hate. So that's the president's post on social media, Kira. He had one event on his public schedule today that was scheduled to take place this afternoon. That was closed to press. It has not taken place yet. We'll see if that event opens up to reporters and whether the president comments on this directly and has a chance to take some questions from reporters. Kira.
All right, Karen, thank you. And I want to clarify now, I have more context to the video. We do have the entire part of the video where this 37-year-old woman is shot and killed, but we are leaving the part off, or leaving the part out where she is actually fired upon. So here's ICE agents coming up to the car. She's clearly backing up, trying to move on. We have cut out the part where the officer opens fire, but basically what happens is she is shot shortly after she is approached here, and as she's trying to leave, the car crashes. You can see one of the ICE agents on the other side of the car as well. Let's bring in our Chief Justice correspondent, Pierre Thomas. Pierre, we finally did get video cleared. You are seeing the actual footage there of a bystander that captured the video on a cell phone. We have two totally different stories here and a massive investigation that is underway, being led by the FBI. You've got DHS, Pierre, Kristi Noem, saying this was domestic terrorism, that this ICE officer was reacting in self-defense, but then you have the mayor of Minneapolis, Jacob Frey, and also the police chief, Brian O'Hara, saying there is much more to this story that is simply not true, that the ICE officer was not necessarily reacting in self-defense.
Well, Kara, we have a total disconnect, as you say, between what the federal government is saying and what the local authorities are saying. You saw the governor of Minnesota, in this case, express his frustration with ICE and the enforcement that's going on in the city of Minneapolis, but he was very clear in trying to point out and urging citizens to peacefully protest and to conduct themselves in a way that did not invite more violence. I think the key here is that the video, there apparently is going to be body camera video from the ICE agent perspective. They're going to have to go through that video frame by frame. But I think the key here is that law enforcement officials from DHS perspective, they are loud and they're clear. As you say, the Secretary of Homeland Security calling this an act of domestic terrorism. They put out a statement that the woman was using the vehicle as a weapon to try to run over the ICE officers, that there were ICE officers injured. All those things now have to be investigated by the FBI. Also, the state police officials will be involved in this investigation. But, Kira, what you've seen over the last few months is, as ICE expands their efforts across the country, tensions in the communities are rising. And there has to be, going forward, it would seem to me, more education about how people are to conduct themselves in these situations as well. But again, the investigation will have to determine exactly what happened. In this case, split-second decisions are being made, but also we don't have any information from the woman's perspective and what she feared was going to happen to her as well.
And again, tensions on top of mind for Governor Tim Walz as he now says he's prepared to deploy the Minnesota National Guard if things get out of hand. Pierre Thomas, Karen Travers, thank you so much. Our special coverage does continue on ABC News Live and abcnews.com. David Muir will be here with the entire team for World News Tonight. I'm Kira Phillips. Thanks for making us a part of your afternoon.
This has been a special report from ABC News.
Glad you're back with me here on ABC News Live. Let's get right back to that news conference in Minnesota. Governor Tim Walz taking questions from correspondents after that ICE officer fatally shot that 37-year-old woman at the protest there in Minneapolis.
In D.C., my job is to govern, and my job is to see what the facts are. This happened a couple of hours ago, and we're already pitting American against American. All of you saw a video in your eyes. We have a chaotic situation caused by the largest deployment in American history of federal agents into a community with no communication to locals. We had a chaotic situation where an individual is in their car, shot and killed. And so, look, I want to be very cautious here because Donald Trump will make this about me. He will make this about politics. This is about public safety, and this is about normalcy. To Americans who are watching this, if you're in Portland or you're in LA or you're in Chicago or you're wherever they're coming next, stand with us. Stand with us against this. This was so preventable, so unnecessary, and I don't know. I hope. Maybe we're at the McCarthy moment. Do you have no decency? Do you have no decency? We have someone dead in their car for no reason whatsoever. And I don't want to be right about this, but I said if they do this, they're going to create a chaotic situation where someone innocent's going to get killed. And they did it. And now we hear more political rhetoric. Enough. Enough is enough. And so to Minnesotans, don't take the bait. Do not take the bait. Do not allow them to deploy federal troops into here. Do not allow them to invoke the Insurrection Act. Do not allow them to declare martial law. Do not allow them to lie about the security and the decency of this state. And let's let this investigation play itself out. Let's make sure we protect our neighbors. I encourage you to use your First Amendment rights and all of your constitutional rights, but do so in a peaceful manner. We'll gather back with you as soon as we gather more information that needs to be put out. But again, stay safe, Minnesotans, and we'll be back with you.
Thank you, Bob.
Thank you, Bob.
There in Minneapolis about that fatal shooting earlier this morning involving ICE agents and a 37-year-old woman who was fatally killed in her SUV. For more on this, I want to bring in our immigration reporter Armando Garcia, who has been tracking this all day. He's also been tracking ICE's activity across the country. And Armando, we heard Governor Walz there just saying that, in his opinion, this was so preventable. He said he compared this to a McCarthy moment, asking, do you have no decency of President Trump and his response here? But just lay the ground for us as to how these ICE operations have really kind of ramped up in Minneapolis over the last few months.
Yeah, and look, you know, over the country, not only in Minneapolis, right? We've been on the ground in Chicago and Los Angeles and Charlotte very recently, and Raleigh as well, as the Trump administration continues to expand its immigration enforcement agenda, its deportation agenda as well. As far as Minneapolis, we know that as many as 2,000 agents have been deployed there in recent days, partly in order to investigate allegations of fraud in Somali-run daycare centers, but also to target what they call the worst of the worst, right? Criminals getting criminals off the streets. We've seen them publicly publish those videos and photos of these arrests of people who they say are criminals. But regardless of the reasoning behind this deployment, we have seen cities and communities respond to the increase of federal immigration agents in their city by essentially establishing what they call rapid response networks. These are filled with people, usually volunteers, who call themselves legal observers, who race to the scene of reported enforcement actions to warn neighbors about the presence of ICE, and then sometimes as well to alert people who are being arrested of their rights. One thing we've seen, though, is this growing concern about whether or not these legal observers are, obstructing these kinds of arrests, and also if they could be caught in the middle of these operations or be targeted for immigration enforcement themselves.
Armando, thanks for that. Stick with us for just a second. I want to bring in our Chief Justice Correspondent, Pierre Thomas, who has also been tracking this. And Pierre, we learned this afternoon that the FBI is now going to be investigating this situation. Can you break down first how that could play out, and also, with these dueling narratives about what played out here between local authorities and also federal officials? I mean, how does jurisdiction and authority really kind of play out there?
Based on what we've been told so far, the FBI will conduct an investigation along with what essentially is the state police in the state of Minnesota. Hopefully, based on what we're being described, there will be transparency between the agencies that will conduct this jointly. What we anticipate happening here is that, number one, there should be body camera video from ICE agents that they can make use of, number one. Number two, they will gather all the video from passersby, from people using their mobile phones, and also they will try to conduct a background investigation into the victim to find out as much as we can find out about that person. But the key will be breaking down the frame-by-frame video from as many vantage points as possible, and interviewing the officers to determine what that officer's vantage point was and compare that to what actually took place. That is going to be the key. Right now you have a lot of emotions flaring, escalating, where DHS is describing this as an act of self-defense by an officer who is being basically attempted to be run down by a subject in a vehicle. You have the mayor saying that that is a lie, that did not take place. Again, we're going to have to wait for the results of the investigation. What I think you saw the governor do is express his frustration with the level and the scale of ICE operations in the state of Minnesota, but also at the same time trying to tell the American people, and particularly the people of Minnesota, that they need to be very measured in their activity, protest, but do so peacefully.
Yeah, that message Governor Walz had, essentially, don't allow them to win, them in his account being the federal government there, and being able to declare or distribute more National Guard troops in that area. But Pierre, while I have you, when we talk about the collection of evidence in a situation like this, it's so fluid. You talked about just how important it's going to be analyzing frame by frame, but also getting cell phone video from others. We had cell phone video that was shared with us by city council members that were on the ground there. How do investigators go about determining who is there, who actually might have evidence that could be useful in an investigation like this?
It's very cumbersome, it's painstaking, but they will try to, as best they can, try to determine everyone who was at the scene. They obviously were canvassing today in real time to get as much footage as they possibly could. There'll be public requests for information, for video. All that will take place. This is a high-profile case. This is a case that now has the attention of the nation. It will be a case that's being played out on all the networks, cable, digital, social media. This is a story that is unfolding in real time, and it's a development in sort of the ongoing and escalating process that we've seen play out in city after city in the country. To be clear, the Trump administration is conducting a very wide-ranging and intensive and increasingly aggressive immigration enforcement campaign. They're doing it. They're being very above board about it. They're talking about what they're doing. What you're seeing over time is communities organizing, in some cases very frustrated by the level and the aggression that they, in their minds, that they're seeing. And the question now becomes, in the wake of a death like this, will the governing officials seek some kind of common ground in terms of how to dial down the temperature going forward? That is going to be the key here. But the investigation will yield whatever the investigation yields. And what the public, I'm sure, will push for is as much transparency as possible. And we live in a world in which there are going to be so many different versions of that video that will be out there that people will start to draw their own conclusions. But what law enforcement needs to do is very methodically and in a dispassionate way go through the investigation and try to determine what took place and whether the actions by the ICE officials were lawful or not.
Yeah, well, and that state, that city, Minneapolis, and its mayor, Jacob Frey, once again, the focal point of our collective attention. Pierre Thomas, thank you. Thank you. I want to bring in our White House correspondent, Karen Travers, who has been monitoring the response from the White House on this. And Karen, we did hear from President Trump. He commented on Truth Social, saying the woman driving this car was very disorderly, obstructing and resisting, really kind of backing up the account that we'd already heard from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem.
He did, and he said that the woman that was in the video, who you could hear screaming, he called her a professional agitator, Alex. The president said he watched the video. He called it a horrible thing to watch, and he said that the situation there was being studied. But Alex, he then went on to blame what happened today in Minnesota and other events like this on what he called the radical left. He said the reasons that these incidents are happening is because the radical left is, quote, threatening, assaulting, and targeting our law enforcement officers and ICE agents on a daily basis. He defended the administration's policies and law enforcement, saying they're just trying to do the job of making America safe. Alex, the president, ended his post by saying we need to stand by and protect our law enforcement officers from what he calls this radical left movement of violence and hate. This is a similar message that we have heard from the president before. Went back and looked the comments he made the night that Charlie Kirk was shot, and he gave remarks in the Oval Office that were released by the White House. And he said at that time, the attack on his life in Butler, Pennsylvania, to the attacks on ICE agents, to the vicious murder of a healthcare executive on the streets of New York. He even went back to the shooting of Congressman Steve Scalise years ago. He says, quote, radical left violence has hurt too many people and taken too many lives. But Alex, notably in those remarks, and again in the statement today in that social media post, doesn't mention incidents where Democrats or liberals or progressives have been targeted. And of course, that violence has happened as well. Alex?
Yeah, that's a very good point, Karen. And while I have you, we also know that Greg Bovino of Border Patrol was also in Minneapolis. He was filmed walking that scene earlier today. That was video that was shared with us by a city council member. I'm curious. I mean, have we heard from the administration? I understand that they say that this is being studied, but have we heard from the administration about any additional federal resources that might be coming to the Minneapolis area?
No, not yet, not specifics on that. And I should note, too, that the president did have an event scheduled for this afternoon that was scheduled to be closed to reporters. We are waiting to see if potentially that opens up in the Oval Office so that the president does comment on this on camera to reporters. And there's a chance then to ask him some questions about this, to go beyond just that social media post. But otherwise, we had a briefing earlier today with the White House press secretary. This was actually unfolding while we were in the briefing, but Caroline Leavitt didn't get questions about it because, of course, Alex, it was happening while we were in there. So no details specifically on the White House yet on those types of resources, but certainly something we'll check on.
All right, Karen Travers, thank you so much. And I want to go now to ABC News Justice and Homeland Security reporter Luke Barr, who has also been tracking this for us. And Luke, we've certainly heard what's been a forceful backing from the administration as to that ICE officer's actions earlier today. I mean, usually this is something that's investigated, and then you have some sort of conclusion that's drawn. But here you're hearing not just from the head of DHS, but also from the president, pretty forcefully backing this ICE officer's actions.
Yeah, Alex, forcefully, and even the White House Rapid Response Team sharing a graphic that says, "I stand with ICE." Now, the governor said there that the FBI and the state investigative agency, so they're sort of their equivalent of the FBI that looks into cases of this stature, is going to be working together with the FBI to investigate this case. And he also said that the National Guard is on standby and sort of issued a warning shot for that. Let's take a listen.
I've issued a warning order to prepare the Minnesota National Guard. We have soldiers in training and prepared to be deployed if necessary. I remind you, a warning order is a heads up for folks. And these National Guard troops are our National Guard troops. They're teachers in your community, they're business owners, they're construction professionals. They are Minnesotans. Minnesota will not allow our community to be used as a prop in a national political fight.
Now, the governor also said that ICE did not communicate with local officials that are on the ground that they were going to be conducting immigration operations. In some cases, Alex, ICE will communicate, with their local counterparts to say, hey, we're going to be at a location in this neighborhood early in the morning or whenever they might be there, to sort of deconflict. This did not happen there, and because of the adversarial nature of the relationship between local officials there in Minnesota and the White House and the administration, Alex.
Well, and Luke, while I have you, because I think that's a really important point. I mean, we heard Governor Walz there say we do not need any more help from the federal government. Likely, he was talking about that FBI investigation and any additional ICE agents that might be on the ground there in Minneapolis. But as you're pointing out, I mean, how rare is it for, politics aside, for there not to be any sort of collaboration or coordination between federal and local law enforcement?
Well, in the topic of immigration, which is certainly a controversial topic, it depends on the state. If you look at Florida, for example, there's collaboration, and there's a program that even Florida authorities can arrest and give people who are suspected of being in the country illegally over to ICE. But in Minnesota, obviously, that's not necessarily the case, as we have just heard from the governor. So it really depends state by state on immigration matters, but other matters, in most cases, federal and local authorities are in lockstep, Alex.
Yeah, usually you see that symbiotic relationship. Luke Barr, hey, thank you so much. I want to bring in ABC News contributor and former chief of detectives for the NYPD, Robert Boyce. And Robert, listen, I mean, you've been watching all of this play out today. I know you've listened to a number of the press conferences. I'm curious, I mean, what has stood out to you so far about how this situation has unfolded, and also, the responses that we've seen from the governor and now the president?
Yeah, so Alex, a couple things. We've seen Secretary Noem saying they were not doing an operation there. They were pushing themselves out of a snow problem, and that's when this kind of all transpired. It's unknown how many people arrived at that time. We'll find that out when we start really piecing this thing together, which all these, both the federal and the locals, should be saying we're going to look at this is preliminary information without making bold statements. That's the way it's normally done around the country. Now, the symbiotic relationship you mentioned with the feds and locals, it happens everywhere else. It happens in New York. We have task forces. And when the ICE has an issue, the NYPD arrives in New York and helps with the protest. And that's why it keeps everything moving. That didn't look like it happened here. So that's to be determined as well. And all that video that Pierre spoke about, that's going to be parsed individually and been shared between the two investigative agencies, which is another rarity here. The FBI should have this alone, but now the Minnesota Bureau of Criminal Apprehension is involved, which is fine. as long as everybody shares the information and the results of interviews with each ICE officer.
Well, and Bob, listen, this isn't the first time that you've had a local official who doesn't share the same political ideology as you know what's happening at the federal level. But I'm curious, in your experience, I mean, have you ever seen a rift between local law enforcement and the directives given to them versus what's being basically, you know, shipped down from federal law enforcement officials? I mean, it seems like it's not just a lack of a symbiotic relationship. I mean, these are, you know, divergent narratives here.
Yeah, Alex, is a really important point, is to understand that law enforcement gets along just fine. But when politics come in, politicians speak, it's different. You saw Chief O'Hara. I thought he did a really good job today, explaining, calming the room down. This is what I saw. This is what my people saw when they arrived on the scene. This is what we had. And went through shooting guidelines, which we don't want usually people shooting at moving vehicles. But there are times, and you have to take them individually. This happens. And the chief said that, and I agree with that. I tell you, Alex, I investigated well over 100 of these things, and each one has to be taken individually. And that's what this has to be. So the rancor and the political stuff aside, let's just get to the facts of the case, which is going to take a while. It's going to go into the coming hours and into tomorrow, and probably the whole week.
Yeah, certainly something that is going to play out over some time. Bob Boies, hey, thank you so much.
Thanks.
And we've got much more on this after the break.
I'd never seen that many skeletal remains. Thousands. It's a serial killer case.
This killer, he's the Dahmer you've never heard of.
More and more men are going missing, and then the lead broke the case open. They discovered the farm.
The whole place was so bizarre.
There were mannequins, almost like it was a club.
I felt the presence of evil.
The largest number of unidentified human remains, second only to the World Trade Center.
Not many people live to tell about their involvement with the serial killer.
Everything we know about this case comes from you.
Absolutely. Let's not do that.
Ooh, I'm sorry.
Never before a face-to-face interview with a camera.
Why now?
Let me ask you, am I the evil culprit, the accomplice? I'd like to know how the audience views me.
The Fox Hollow Murders, Playground of a Serial Killer. Only on Hulu.
This card is going to be the ticket to the rest of your career. Welcome to American Idol University.
American Idol is back.
We're heading to Nashville
to find the best undiscovered talent.
I can't believe people like you still walk through that door.
This is going to be my favorite class of the year.
I will think about you probably for the rest of my life.
I didn't think I'd ever get to be somewhere like this.
American Idol premieres Monday, January 26 on ABC and Hulu.
The peaceful silence in Kafue National Park was pierced by a gunshot.
There's been a horrible tragic accident.
His wife was shot dead.
There were a number of factors that indicated that this was not an accident. They thought they had gotten away with it for years.
This call is from a federal prison.
I relive this every day in my mind.
I still can't believe it turned out the way it did.
Trophy Wife, Murder on Safari, only on Hulu.
My friends think I'm crazy.
College is the most unserious part of your life.
He's not someone who lets things go.
Why are you doing this?
Because I want to hurt you, and I don't know how else to do it.
I just really feel like things are going to be different this time.
ABC's Nightline, the stories that shape your world, that shape your life. Dramatic, stunning, empowering, life-changing. For 45 years, the most powerful stories of our time.
This is Nightline.
Wherever the story is, Nightline will take you there. Just because it's late night doesn't mean you should be in the dark. For a brighter take on the day, this is ABC's Nightline. Late night on ABC.
113, you're gonna need all hands.
911 Nashville is
is television's #1 new show.
Get out of there now!
With crazy rescues.
We're coming to you! I got you!
And jaw-dropping moments.
Flames hit that and...
Thursday.
The city's been hacked. There'd be a catastrophic loss of lives.
An emergency that will touch every corner of Nashville.
Every light in the city went green at the same time.
Returns Thursday on ABC and stream on Hulu.
Welcome back to ABC News Live. We have more breaking coverage now of the deadly ICE-involved shooting in Minneapolis. ABC News contributor and former DHS Assistant Secretary Elizabeth Newman joins me now. Elizabeth, I know you've been following these developments as they've unfolded basically since just after 11 this morning. But I'm curious because we heard pretty early on from DHS Secretary Kristi Noem really backing the actions by this ICE agent. And that was something that just less than an hour ago, the president also backed. I'm curious, what stood out to you about this incident and this pending investigation thus far?
Well, especially now that we've seen the video, it's really hard for me to understand how the Secretary of Homeland Security and the president are able to come out so quickly and label this domestic terrorism. Terrorism has a meaning under the law, and it requires an ideological motive. And it's usually not something you can see from a video. Sometimes you can. Sometimes we have examples of a vehicle ramming and there's like an ISIS flag in the window. And so you can kind of surmise, oh, okay, maybe this is ideologically motivated. Maybe it's terrorism. But I'm not seeing anything in this video that demonstrates an ideological motive. I'm also not seeing that this was premeditated. Terrorism usually has a premeditation and intention. It's not happening in the spur of the moment out of fear that perhaps what we saw is the ICE officer coming up and trying to open the door, and maybe she was scared, and maybe that's why she drove off. It raises more questions than it does tell us directly what happened. So labeling it domestic terrorism, I think, is very premature, and we need to let the investigation play out.
Yeah, certainly a strong accusation. You see what looks like the beginnings of a two-point turn there with that SUV. As it appears, an ICE agent is grabbing the driver's side door handle. But I'm also kind of curious. Listen, we heard from Governor Walz. He mentioned that he's issued a warning order for National Guard troops there in Minnesota to be on standby. He said pretty emphatically that they are our troops. Have you ever seen a situation like this play out in your experience, where you have a state elected who essentially is pretty blatantly and forcefully speaking out against any further action from the federal government?
I think it's a wise course of action, because the people of Minneapolis are very upset right now. And we're seeing that in the video that we're showing of people walking down the streets. And it wasn't too very long ago, 5.5 years ago, that we had the George Floyd protests that started not more than a mile from the location here. So if you're the governor or mayor of this jurisdiction, the first thing you're thinking about is, I have to find a way to tell my people that I understand your anger, and we will do everything we can to seek justice and remain calm. And I think that's what we heard from Governor Walz and his director of public safety, who were giving very explicit instructions of, here's how to peacefully protest. Please help us. But also sending signals with that standby of the National Guard, that order that he said that he has given to make sure that if needed, if there is civil unrest, we will send our own National Guard in. We don't need you feds to come in and federalize the National Guard and deploy them on our behalf. That further sends a signal to the people of Minnesota that the governor has this under control, that he hears them, that he's frustrated along with them, angry along with them at what has happened today, but they don't need to take matters into their own hands. So I actually saw that as a very wise move on the governor's behalf to try to offer calm to people who are rightfully angry right now, to make sure that things don't spill over and more tragedy occur.
Yeah, well, and it's a really good point to point out. We're actually looking at video of crowds there pelting what looks like law enforcement vehicles with snowballs there. Certainly a lot of folks remembering that George Floyd video that played out on camera as well some years ago. Elizabeth Newman, thank you very much for your input. And coming up after the break, the U.S. seizes 2 oil tankers linked to Venezuela. Details on what could be a major escalation as the Trump administration exerts more control over the Venezuelan oil industry.
I am the fire!
Get your 3D tickets now for the greatest chapter of the biggest saga in history.
Whatever happens, protect his family.
Critics rave it's by far the best Avatar movie.
If your father and I do not return, you go as far and as fast as you can.
Avatar Fire and Ash, rated PG-13, now playing.
Tonight, breaking news. The U.S. seizing 2 oil tankers. The escalation with Venezuela as the White House declares Greenland should be part of the U.S. Outrage overseas. Plus, the California wildfires. 1 year later, David Muir goes back. World News Tonight with David Muir is America's most watched newscast.
This card is going to be the ticket to the rest of your career. Welcome to American Idol University.
American Idol is back.
We're heading to Nashville
to find the best undiscovered talent.
I can't believe people like you still walk through that door.
This is going to be my favorite class of the year.
I will think about you probably for the rest of my life.
I didn't think I'd ever get to be somewhere like this.
American Idol premieres Monday, January 26 on ABC and Hulu.
Now you can listen to a podcast version of 2020, available free wherever you listen.
Tell a joke.
I think I'm getting a divorce. What tipped me off was living in an apartment on my own.
It doesn't have to be awkward, right?
I've been doing open mic nights.
Is it like a hobby?
It's actually pretty amazing.
Are you gonna be okay?
I'm gonna be okay. Doing this, it helps.
How does it help to have a room full of people laughing at you?
Is this thing on? Rated R. ABC's David Muir, the most watched newscast in America. More Americans watch World News Tonight with David Muir than any other newscast.
The Trump administration officials say that the U.S. Coast Guard has seized 2 sanctioned oil tankers linked to Venezuela in back-to-back operations. Administration officials say one was in the North Atlantic Ocean and the other was in international waters near the Caribbean. And take a look at this video. It shows the seizure of that vessel. Homeland Security officials say the vessels are part of Russia's